What is going on, guys? This is Coach Mylan here, coming at you with another quick little education video. One of the biggest mistakes that I see with a lot of clients is that they tend to just target muscle groups, when the reality is you need to learn how to lift relative to your anatomy, particularly at joints, and how the muscles are therefore stimulated, if that makes sense, right? So everyone has a different anatomy than the next person. We got to focus on what people have in common, okay, which is the ability to push, pull, squat, and hinge, okay, not just targeting your chest, your triceps, your back, your glutes, whatever you're trying to hit. And so we know that the long-term direction of your program needs to be determined by how you chart. Okay, so hopefully that you have a good mathematical understanding of that. But that stuff is really greatly influenced by genetics, lifestyle, and your ability to work with that. This right here is a really good example of some anatomical differences between individuals, because these people are not going to push the same, they're not going to pull the same, they're not going to squat the same, and so we really need to understand that. I'm just looking at these two people, right? They have different length legs, right? They have different torso lengths. This guy right here also has a external rotation, okay, and so there's that. This guy, okay, may end up actually toeing out as he gets down into position. A pet peeve of mine is when people actually project their anatomy onto someone else and they say, oh, bad form, bro. Hold on a second, did you even do an actual assessment? If you're trying to learn a movement by simply watching someone else, right, if you fail to consider how you and that person may be different, you're going to end up with incorrect coaching, right, an incompetent mindset, poorly executed movements, high risks of injury, right, so on and so forth. And so again, just because someone looks similar to you in build or in musculature, that does not mean that you guys need to lift the exact same. Figure out what's different from one person to the next. In terms of this person's bench press, right? Sure, like some people will say, oh, this arch is bad. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish with the programming and everything, especially as the individual is forming tension, right? Okay, to then support the weight in the bench press. To give you guys a good bench press example, if you have really long arms, yes, you do have a contact point. The amount that you go here in terms of travel is going to put a different amount of torque on the shoulder, which can make or break your training. And so what you need to do is have a technical approach for each individual lift. A lot of people say like that they're dealing with Instagram comments or other things like that, but the reality is you have to know yourself, know your anatomy, and then ignore the haters. Notice how this individual here, because the elbows come back a lot more in the bottom of the lift, right? Again, they're gonna put more torque on the shoulder, and so it's probably better to adjust the overall contact point. Now, the reason why some people may not want to do that is because they might notice that their lifts go down, but really that's more of a temporary thing. The more you train a movement pattern, obviously the stronger you are going to be in said movement pattern. There's really so many variables to really refer to, which is why I do a lot of form review. It's changes in general alignment. This is obviously quite more apparent between the sexes. However, okay, everyone has individual variances. There's guys with wide hips, guys with narrow shoulders, different arm lengths, right, so on and so forth. And so the main thing that you need to understand is, even due to anatomical adaptations as you go throughout the whole training process, sometimes what was once your optimal form, or maybe what you're coached up on, becomes not so much the case over time. When I really started to progress my bench press and I got to 350 pounds, I did notice, okay, that, hey, like I was doing this sort of a form here. However, my shoulder, okay, just started to not really want to cooperate. And so I had to take a hit, so to speak, in terms of the weight, to then adjust the overall setup, my hand placement, my foot positioning, even how you're bridging here, okay, matters. And so sometimes people will have their feet out, okay, versus in. But then also something like ankle flexibility, right? It could be something like, okay, she has an elevated heel here, which then changes the tension, again, in the overall lift. And so it's really, again, just about looking at all those variables as you train and then going from there. What you, again, do not want to really do from a programming perspective is program by the muscle groups only. Okay, what we're trying to do is program through movement. That's something that I'm really harping on, because again, everyone has the ability to push, pull, squat, hinge. The question is, how are you going to do that? It's not that you just want to hit the chest and the triceps, it's that you want to hit them in an optimal way for you. Now, the main thing about isolation exercises is that stuff is really not as complicated, but if you're someone that really wants to stimulate the most net degree of musculature and really push the quality of the exercises more so than the quantity, then you're going to need to learn, really do more compounds, and then add on the isolation exercises to your workout program relative to what's going on in the movement patterns in what weak areas that you need to address. That's just a quick little video for you guys today. Please let me know if you got questions in the comments, and feel free to reach out. Thanks, and have a good one. Bye.